Hello, guys. Thank you for all coming. I'm Kwonyoup Kim, sub-presentation, main presentator Seungjoon. I'm a security engineer and the founder of SNTbox. We have prepared for this talk as much as we can, but if you require something more specific, it's going to take some time, but we will respond as quickly as possible. Please contact us. Well, I will begin the talk. Most of our work involves evaluating for embedded system security and finding vulnerabilities. Recently, I have been interested in testing to validate vendors' claims. And they claim the product delivers security value, but it is difficult or impossible to prove that value. And also, vendors share little to no reliable information about product. In this aspect, I think it would be worthwhile to analyze proprietary RF protocols, because RF world still have not heavily explored in security field. Thus, as part of this project, we will talk about drone RF link security. Before the main talk, let me just explain what's going on the drone RC market. In this previous version, there are many counterfeits were on the market. As far as we know, since its release in 2019, the access protocols has been analyzed yet. And no clones have been made because the vendor has been effort to prevent counterfeiting. The safety of open RF and proprietary RF protocols may mean the same as whether open source is secure or closed source is safe. The proprietary RF protocol was not heavily explored, so many poor implementation exist. In this talk, we will analyze drone omnic protocol based on the frequency hopping techniques. The FHSS technology is considered a security benefit and kind of security masked to the public. But many vendors focus on RF performance rather than hoping for security. I wish security engineer would reconsider RF security. And we urge vendor and stakeholders to consider security. We will discuss the security risk in RC, FHS implementation which are affected and show the result of practical drone hijacking attack, and provide a revealing insight into the drone omnic RF communication analysis by in-depth analyzing the newest protocol. It will provide RF analytic skill to check the security aspect and other commercial RF protocol. To this end, we also discuss technique for mitigation from the vendors and open source developer point of view. This study might provide some inspiration for the secure proprietary RF protocol work that can satisfy security and RF performance. The order of explanation we explain the technical background and the internal structure of the analysis target. Next, we will look at the analysis technique of the collected RF signal and packet structure. Based on analyzed content, we explain the cloning and hijacking method. The main speaker, Seungjoon, will explain the details of this.
Then I will continue to talk. First, I will give a little background, and then I will talk about details of techniques. And I also have prepared 3 demo videos, which is about sniffing and cloning and hijacking. I hope you will enjoy it. Historically, FHS was in fact designed as security protocol during World War II, patented by movie actress Hedy Lamarr, as a secret communication system that could guide torpedoes to their target without being intercepted by the enemy. The main idea is to send radio signals over multiple frequencies in random pattern. Although FHS is an old school technology, today it is still used as an interference avoidance. Generally, a hopping sequence consists of a set of available channels arranged in a pseudo-random order. Therefore, since it is difficult to intercept whole signal, some think the FHS provides added security. Besides, it has many good characteristics on today. Among them, main strengths are as follows: the interference and coexistence and high power and multipath fading. I'd like to talk about FHS from a security perspective. First, do not rely on FHS for eavesdropping protection because they can still receive some packet. And second, use complicated frequency hopping pattern. And third, use wrong frequency hopping sequence. And fourth, set or sequence pattern across all models differently. And last, use more channels. It is highly resistant to deliberate jamming unless the adversary has knowledge of frequency hopping pattern. As mentioned earlier, one of the advantages of FHS is resistance to interference. Suppose an adversary is interfering with 2 channels. In this figure, if we lose a packet for the position value corresponding to S7 and F4, it will not affect the overall traveling of the drone, just only a little effect on its movement. Eventually, it is important to have as much channel position as possible in the whole operating times. So what if we cannot use 100% channels? There needs to be some kind of mechanism to bring the channel back into use at some point. If there is no mechanism, the transmitter may not be able to match the receiver sequence forever. Therefore, FHS wants to resolve the sequence mismatch by synchronization technique. There are many ways to implement it. I will show you 2 simple ways. The case 1 is just staying in listening mode on current channel. The case 2 is a way to give a long change interval time than usual. So in case 1, a whole sequence is lost, but case 2, only a slightly smaller number of sequences are lost. To maintain quality, this resynchronization time must be kept minimum. Eventually, if they have a more longer sequence, the mechanism should be elaborated and complicated. Next is teardown, and anti-reverse engineering is to slow down the process of reverse engineering, and teardown is essentially a way to find out how it works. In this chapter, we are going to tear down our target devices to reveal the internal circuit and ICs that implement core functionalities of products, and also examine the way of vendor against reverse engineering. The figure shows the inside of transmitter consisting of 2 boards with main CPU and RF SoC. The main CPU is only involved to make payloads by user action. The key chip is in here, RF SoC. So, and they have unique identification value, which is called as a TXID. This figure shows the old protocol XCC-SD receiver. I could see the details of the chip model even by looking at it with the naked eye. And there is interconnection wire between the main CPU and RF chip on PCB. So it makes it easy to obtain RF parameter and other critical information, such as hopping sequence through tapping. Now this time, let's see the latest protocol access receiver. The vendor seemed to know the issue caused by interconnection wire exposed on PCB. So they have shifted from separate design to an SoC. And just like transmitter chip identification has been removed by laser. Therefore, wiretapping is not possible like the previous version XSTS receiver. So the only way left in device is finding pre-bungee port and extract firmware. So hiding marking is commonly used as a security through obscurity technique in attempt to make a device reverse engineering more difficult. But it isn't just minor hindrance to reverse engineer if there is supply chain risks. And so we can find out this chip is TI CC2652R and their debugging port. And we try to connect each JRing with hardware debugger. But we could find that they have hardware security defense mechanism, debugger lock, and erase. The word debugger lock and erase literally means if adversary try to access debugger port, their internal flash memory forced erase by internal circuit. So it is major hindrance to reverse engineer, although there are some ways to bypass, such as glitch to internal logic. In general, if embedded reverse engineer decide to let go or move on. Eventually, it seems all action has been taken to protect reverse engineering. But we have one left attack surface, which can be accessed on anyone. It is a radio frequency. There are some options to analyze RF. The cheapest option is SDR. And I think there are two options to make RF packet sniffer. One of the ways to sniff packet is using transceiver IC support to 2.4 gigahertz. This way is easy, and all I have to care about is setting parameters. But our attack requires to check the target frequency in live. SDR is the best choice for making our drone sniffer. And also, one of the advantages of such of this what we can design to increase agility and flexibility. For now, I'll review a signal with an RF carrier frequency of 2.4 gigahertz. We found that the signal consists of 47 control channels and one binding channel in FR Sky. The binding channel is used for pairing with transmitter and receiver. And as you can see in the figure, it is use low power. It is intended that pairing is only possible at close range. If we take a closure loop binding channel and their procedure was changed from one way to the two-way. And also access send only 20 packets for pairing. It is believed that they worry about deliberate signal by other people in binding time, such like Bluetooth pairing. And if we can check control channels, FHS is a method of transmitting radio signals by rapidly changing a carrier among many frequency channels. As in this figure, you can see signals by rapidly changing the 47 frequencies. When magnified one of channels, it is easily known that the modulation is BFSK. The BFSK signal deviates from the center frequency depending on the binary message. Thus, in FSK, a binary 1 represents one frequency, and binary 0 represents another frequency. Our sniffer aims to demodulate this signal correctly. The figure shows our simple GNU radio block diagram for demodulating FR Sky signal. So I will explain shortly about the design. We left all the details parameters such as filter design in this block diagram. Once we have decided which source device to choose, we now want to focus in on the signal of interest and filter out any other signals present in baseband we have recorded. We have determined the RX bandwidth is about 232 kilohertz, so we put this as the cutoff frequency. Although we use the USRP in this block diagram, but it does not matter if you use a chip model like HEG-RF. And then we have to demodulate the signal. As you know, there are many ways to demodulate the BFSK, but commonly used method in GNU radio implementation is the quadrature demodulation. So we already know one is represented by the center frequency plus deviation, and 0 is represented by center frequency minus deviation. In IQ signal, a positive phase change corresponds to positive frequency, and negative phase change corresponds to negative frequency. So that if we set the correct deviation, it monitors the change in phase and output the demodulated signal. If we examine successful of the demodulated wave in review, the packet starts on the left with the preamble immediately followed by sync word, and we can see the packet length and DXID payloads. Before the symbol to bit, we need to check what digital encoding is applied. It is NRZ coding, so we don't consider additional digital decoder. Now that we have come this far, we should check the symbol timing. This figure shows the demodulated digital wave for both access and ACCFT. To get this baud rate, we just can minimum symbol length, preamble signal let me know the minimum generally. So we can calculate the baud rate. The point to notice in this, access has a 60% higher baud rate to compare to ACCFT. Now we can extract the symbol at the correct time. I use the clock recovery which is to recover sample from a signal. In the block, the parameter omega is estimate of number of sample per symbol. So we have already got a baud rate of access and ACCFT, 124 K and 77 K respectively before. If we just put 64 and 103 according to protocols. And for practical experiment, I will share this sniffing transmitter with two different distances. If there are someone is using drone to peep, I think it will be there on the rooftop. So I just put it there. Let's see the video. First, transmitter A, because it is far from my sniffer, you can see the weak signal, and there is even noise. And if we raise it, if it adjusts K to 30, you can see the better signal than before. And if we raise it a little bit, noise is also amplified as well. But we can distinguish two control channels of 47. And I select and set the frequency, we can get the packet. So you can see the packet capture the. You can see the capture the packet. You can see the sync word and TXID and current channel info. I will talk with later. And payload and CRC. For transmitter B, it is close to the sniffer, so you can see more powerful signal. And we select and set the frequency above this. We just set, and we can also get the packet, but the transmitter B has other TXID, so you can see the different TXID with the transmitter A. So we can capture the transmitter packet in real time. This time we should inspect the packet field, since interesting point related to FHS has been identified in the packet. So we analyze focusing on hopping sequences and pattern information on the packet. This diagram shows the ACCST timing diagram of SPI. So we can see the receiver shift the channel frequency every about 8 milliseconds. It is about 120 hops per second. Based on the I/O interrupt signal, it takes us approximately 1.4 milliseconds for the next packet to arrive immediately after frequency calibration. So therefore, packets are reached somewhere at this point by the transmitter. So the hijacking signal from the adversary should be reached within about 1.4 milliseconds after the channel has been changed. So I suppose that adversary signal have a fair chance to be acceptable their packet within the time. If we more zoom in on the signal, we can check the changing hopping frequency by observing hardware register. And if we list this value, we can see the total hopping sequence has always 47 hop period. But the sequence we get from the tapping is just a mutated sequence added by hop distance. So there are two options to get base sequence. First is to turn off transmitter and entering listening mode. Second is send packet with hop distance to 1. I will talk it later. A carrier frequency is determined by channel number and channel spacing that can be configured on the RF chip. Channel spacing has been confirmed to be about 300 kilohertz by our prior analysis. In this device, the maximum frequency range that FRSky models can have is from such like this. An equation as follows. We know channel spacing and base frequency, so we are able to calculate the channel number if we just find their center frequency of each channel. Eventually, this channel number will be center frequency synthesizer according to the hopping sequence. The base sequence table can be obtained through tapping, but the table is constructed containing a permutation of frequency channel numbers generated by device ID. And the generated carriers of the two protocols are identical. Fundamentally, the hopping sequence must be ensure low collision by themselves as well as between transmitters. So this device seems to just want to avoid sequence overlapping in short time for clear communication. Therefore, base sequence is generated with linear, and it enters the channel throat only once in the whole sequence cycle. And therefore, cycle of base sequence and number of channels are identical with 47. Moreover, we were able to get important information about hopping in packet. It is base sequence number and hop distance value are exposed in packet field 2 and packet field 3. As mentioned earlier, their full cycle of base sequence and number of frequency channel is identical with 47. So this packet field tells us which base hopping sequence numbers and hopping distance they are using. In old version, it was exposed to low number, but in access new protocol version, they seems like add bit masking trick. If we look at the correlation between the second field and base sequence, we can get their base sequence table. This figure shows the mapping between the sequence and frequency for two transmitters. The information exposed in the second field identically match their base sequence number of FHSS. Thus, when an adversary corrects all the second field of 47 packet, the entire base sequence could be completely restored. In other words, if an attacker can calculate the channel value only with the center frequency, so they can obtain base sequence by each the second field of 47 packets. And third field is hop distance. It means how much distance will be added to the base sequence index. Thus, there can be different hopping sequence by different hop distance. But the FRSky old version protocol fixed hop distance to 7. I think they trying to make the originally intended RF signal characteristics, but I don't know exactly why they are. Then let's check out what the hop distance of access protocol. This figure is frequency hopping of access protocol in slow motion. As you can see, we can see very regular pattern of their channel shifting. Although the ACCSD protocol was able to identify it as 7-throw tapping, but we don't know hopping distance of access yet. So to identifying hop distance, we focus on first hopping as soon as when I power on the transmitter. So we can see that 3 peaks are shown on this animation, as you can see. They are hopping with the gaps as a 9 bases on frequency channels. But if we project them to base hopping sequence table, they also have 7 hop distance on basis of base sequence. To sum up, FRSky's final sequence is created by adding hop distance to the index of base hopping sequence table. And then it feeds to frequency synthesizer. The results so far show that it does not have any random factors in its mechanism. It is just a sequential hopping. The value of distance may be used to select a pattern, but these hop distance 7 are all the same and fixed on the FRSky transmitter. So let's look at the hopping pattern by transmitters. In time domain, it is shown in this figure. You can see it look like the same pattern in 2 different transmitters. In my opinion, they consider more effective the robust communication on multiple transmitters. And I also noticed that the RXRO change of hop distance by TX packet, when the sequence is mismatched between RX and TX, the RX is entered into listening mode, which has a long interval time of sequence change than usual. The important point is the receiver can be resynchronized by arbitrary hopping distance value of the packet field. So it means the next hopping channel is determined prior packet, and also adversary can alter hopping pattern. We could now forge a packet and control the drone in whatever way we want. Finally, we now have enough information to make a transmitter. Using the information obtained from analysis, such as RF parameter and packet, so we just download our firmware to DIY RF module. So I will show a demo video FRSky access cloning transmitter for better understand the RCFHSS. I have 2 versions. One is the wrong hopping sequence transmitter and correct sequence clone transmitter. Let me show you the demo video. First, TX with an incorrect sequence. So you can see something like a lag when I control the joystick. So it's like this. You can see the look like a lag in incorrect sequence. And after I'm update the firmware with the correct hopping sequence. So you can see the hopping correctly, and the receiver is permanently on. And when I control the stick, you can see the smooth movement. It is working well. And we just added some trick for effective hijacking unless the transmission interval between the 2 transmitter systems is exactly the same. Collisions will occur at some point. We hope to disable the original transmission channel more effectively so that we set hop distance to 1 when I send the packet, so that it might be more faster than victim transmitter, except the worst case. And also, it is also effective in breaking the original hopping pattern, so that reducing the collision with the authentic transmitter. I think smart attacker has to make additional complex strategies to make low collisions with authentic TX in order to perfect hijacking. But our simple braking pattern strategy also showed good result in hijacking. As you know, the use of directional antenna and amplifier allowed to increase the level of spoofing signal. When measured by the receiver which I made, received strength for authentic signal is about minus 80 dBm. My attack signal is look better than authentic in same distance with the transmitter. So we can check that this is enough to overpower the real signal within and without a radius of 50 meters. If they just miss one packet, their synchronization will fail. It will be chance to me and my turn. So you can just sniffing it and then kidnap it. First, we should find the lowest frequency of 47 channels. It is always in range from 2.404 gigahertz to 2.408 gigahertz. And set the frequency to our sniffer. And after that, we only get the 3-field TX ID and sequence number and receiver ID. Then set these 3 parameters to firmware, then put it to RF module. It will take a hopping sequence, and breaking it, you can control the drone in where you want to go. Lastly, I will show a demo video. Drone take over attack while it is flying. For safety reason, I perform in hardware in the loop simulation. The test environment was done in my office. It is not good condition to hijack because the distance between clone transmitter and authentic transmitter is too close. But there were meaningful results despite this handicap. You can see the clone transmitter in here and authentic transmitter is in here. So let's see the video. So you can see the correct with authentic TX. I'm in this time, and when arming the drone in authentic transmitter, and you can see that it's being operated by authentic TX. And I'm running to other room for turning on adversary TX. If we turning on the adversary TX, so you can see us. You please look at here for a while, and now reconnect with adversary. The turn red to turn the green. So you can see drone is being controlled by adversary clone transmitter. The important thing is occurrence of hopping sequence collision with authentic TX. They try to connect again. So the red LED is turned on in the reset, but the resynchronize with the adversary, so return on to green LED. So adversary is winning back of the race and continue to attack. So in this section, I will summarize our attack and examine practical fix tips. So talk about weak point in RF side. First, number of channel and sequence of their lengths are same, and the hopping sequence information is exposed on packet. And so these 2 points, adversary easy to restore the sequence in only the band scanning, and hopping pattern could be broken by adversary, so it could effectively hijacking by low collision. In flight controller view, such as Seokhie, it does not consider a fail-safe scenario in which RC is fully controlled by adversary. Generally, the standard RF protocol, the most common way to implementing FHS is through pseudo-random sequence that using 20 shift registers, so they have a long sequence, such as M sequence, such as M sequence, Kasami, and Gold. The longer length, better. At least the length of a sequence must be longer than the number of channels. But in many cases of a small device, proprietary RF protocols does not seem to consider from a security perspective. Their purpose may have been focused on reduce interference and latency in chaos ISM band and increase receiving rate. Because improving response time in uplink make more competitive in market. View in the packet, I think it must not expose hopping sequence relative data in packet. In our work, if adversary can correct 47 channels packet, the entire sequence could be completely restored. So that this data should be kept secure enough, unless the protocol used the pseudo-random sequence. And in many proprietary RF devices, TXID is often involved with a critical function such as a device identification. So it is also necessary to consider about this. Finally, I believe that they have sufficient hardware resources such as capacity and crypto accelerators. Basically, RC has highest priority than others such as Maverick command. If entering off-board mode via Maverick message, RC able to out of off-board mode using RC toggle switch. Autonomous fail-safe method can themselves be flawed when there are very specific flight route, such flying through buildings. So they seem to prefer to take over with own RC to hopefully be able to take manual control of the drone before it smashes. Therefore, I believe that they are not considering scenario in which RC is not fully controlled by the adversary. Conclusion. Lesson learned. The last thing I'd like to say is this: don't trust FHSS. The point is hopping sequence generation. In many RC, PRNG is not adopted in spectrum, and it is surprisingly unsecure from RF attacker. So we have not covered in this talk, not just specific vendors such as FrSky. Most of these RC systems are made like this. It seems necessary to study on FHSS implementation, considering both security and performance. And last, I want to show you the project we are working on. We have completed the smart door lock project as another topic of the RF analysis. I decided to call it smart lock picking attack. I looked at about 20 vendors of smart door lock products. Although they have AES encryption algorithm, I have identified almost the same crypto implementation defects in vendor products. So I can unlock any door using my device. Now we're preparing for presentation. I hope to meet in coming the event. Thank you.